everyone, and welcome back to the Literacy Volunteers of Harrison County YouTube channel. We're a nonprofit United Way agency, and we are providing these videos to you to use as educational purposes and just for general information. Today I'm going to start a new series of lessons. It's called Biology 101, and we're going to go through some of the basic principles of biology and update you on some information that you might find interesting and informational. So today's lesson 1, and we're going to look at what is biology. Before we want to talk about the different principles of it, we need to define what it is, right? So I've broken it down into the two Greek words that it comes from. The first one is bios, which means life, and of course we all know logos or ology means the study of. So in biology we are studying living organisms. Everything that you study would be alive, okay? So here are the things that we're going to study about the living organisms. One, we always want to look at structure. That would be like the anatomy of any organism. And we also want to look at function. Number 2, function is the physiology. And in biology we always talk about structure and function because those two things always go together. If you know what the function of something is, then the structure should match to be whatever the function is. The third thing is growth. Number 4 is origin. Number 5 is evolution, and number 6 is distribution. And we're looking at all of these things and how they relate to living organisms. So, if we're going to, we have the 5 basic, what are called understandings of all living things. Okay, the first thing is the cell theory, and these are the 3 parts of the cell theory. The first one is the cell is the basic unit of life, and this is what we're going to look at in the first section. Like we talk about atoms, and you will look at this wall, it's made up of atoms, but living things are made up of cells, which would be the basic equivalent of an atom. So when we look at living things, we have to look at cells. They're the basic unit. The smallest we can go would be the cell. All living things are composed of cells, one or more, because we do have unicellular organisms that are living, and all cells arise from pre-existing cells. We do not create a cell. It goes back to the law of conservation of energy, law of conservation of mass. Those are the same. They relate to, we can't create anything or destroy anything, we just recycle. Number 2 is energy. All living things require some form of energy to be alive, and energy flows between organisms and between an environment and an organism. So we can look at organism to organism interactions or interactions between organisms and their environment. Number 3 is heredity, and all living things have DNA. And that's the genetic information that codes for the structure and the function of the cell. It also codes for many other things that we probably won't delve into to look at, but we will look at DNA. And hereditary information is passed from parents to offspring. So we need to know that, how does that happen, and why is that important? Why is it important to pass on genetic information? Why do we not want new genetic information, and why do we not want genetic information that's too interrelated? That's important as well. Number 4 is equilibrium. All living things maintain homeostasis. And if we look at homo in Latin means same, right? And stasis is static. So we're maintaining a static equilibrium, something that's the same, a state of balanced equilibrium between the organism and its environment. We want that. If you did not maintain homeostasis with your body, then something would be wrong. That's why you get the goosebumps when you go outside. And if it's really, really cold and you don't have a jacket on, you shiver to warm your body up. It wants to maintain a homeostatic environment. And so that's very important when we look at the biology of organisms. And number 5 is evolution. And evolution is the overlying unifying concept of biology. Not just what Darwin taught us about evolution, but we will look at adaptation, and we will look at things like punctuated equilibrium and things, but we'll get to that later on. Evolution is the change over time, and that's what drives biological diversity, and that's what we want. We want biological diversity. You don't want all the organisms in one niche or in one place to be exactly the same. We want diversity within our organisms, our habitats, our communities, and all of those things. Most biological sciences are specialized disciplines. So if you go on to study biology further, you would study things according to, grouped according to what organism they study. A botanist, or someone who studies botany, studies plants, right? A zoologist studies animals. And microbiologists would study microorganisms like viruses or bacteria. So when you specialize, we can break those down because biology is sort of an all-encompassing topic. Those can be further divided based on the scale at which the organisms are studied and the methods used to study them. If we talk about biochemistry, we examine the fundamental chemistry of life. If you go back and look at some of the earlier videos on health and wellness, I talk a lot about carbohydrates, proteins, fats. That's biochemistry. Those make up living organisms, right? Molecular biology studies complex interactions of systems of biological molecules. You could get into the biology of enzymes and how enzymes drive reactions and how they lower activation energies, different things like that, but that's molecular biology. Physiology examines the physical and chemical functions of tissues and organ systems, and ecology examines how organisms interact and interrelate within certain areas. They have to be close to each other, right? The last thing are the 6 reasons that emphasize the importance of biology. Why do we want to study biology? Why do you spend a whole year in high school studying biology? Why is it important to you? It explains the changes of the human body. That's one thing. If that's where you live and that's who you are in your body, then you need to know what those changes are and how they affect you. It shapes different careers. There are thousands of careers that we could look at of biological origin. It provides answers to large-scale problems, teaches concepts on basic living. It helps understand the fundamental questions about life, and it paves the way for scientific investigation. And this is the way that we are headed if you are in high school or if even a little bit younger. We are now teaching children to think like scientists. We want you to be able to investigate and to problem solve because those are important things that will help you in life. So we're going to be looking at the 5 basic understandings of biology in 5 separate lessons. The very first lesson, the next lesson, number 2, is going to be on the cell, and we would love for you to join us. Please give us a thumbs up on this video and stay tuned for more interesting videos on biology.